What more is there left to say? We paraded in with our palms waving, happily singing songs of praise to Jesus, like our counterparts nearly 2,000 years ago. And then before we knew it, we found ourselves in the midst of what can only be described as a mob-inspired execution carried out by the Roman authorities. But rather than casting judgment on those who made up the mob, maybe we're invited instead to contemplate how we, in our lives, betray the Jesus we profess to follow. More than that, maybe we are invited to see the kind of God we serve in Jesus. Remember, one of the things that we Christians say we trust about Jesus is that he is the very face of God, who walked among us, showing us how to live and who God is. It's instructive to remember and reflect on the portion of the narrative we just heard from the Gospel of Luke. We heard that as Jesus died, the sun's light failed and the curtain was torn. The curtain in the temple in Jerusalem hid the space where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, where the Ten Commandments were kept, the very throne of God, the most holy place in all of Judaism. And only the high priest was permitted to enter that space, and only once a year. When the curtain is torn, we are given a vision into the very heart of God. The torn curtain represents a breakthrough, holy hiddenness giving way to a brilliant clarity about the character of our God. Father Gregory Boyle, a Jesuit priest and founder of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, which is the largest and most successful gang rehabilitation program on earth, writes about this character of our God in his book, The Whole Language, The Power of Extravagant Tenderness. He writes that nothing is more consequential in our lives than the notion of God that we hold. Not God, but the notion of God. Our idea of God will always call the shots. What matters in the end is what kind of God we believe in. Father Boyle calls God the tender one. The tender one. He writes that God never knows what we're talking about when we judge our own worthiness or let ourselves get fixated on God's deep disappointment. If our God makes us feel unworthy and in debt, he says, wrong God. If this God frightens us, wrong God. If God is endlessly disappointed in us, wrong God. The God that Jesus reveals is endlessly compassionate, inclusive, always drawing the circle wider, tender. I wonder how many of us dwell in the notion of an angry, disappointed God. Maybe what is being crucified is our notion of a punitive, punishing, vindictive God. Because if Jesus is the face of God, that notion sure does not work. The God Jesus reveals loves each and every one of us more than we can possibly imagine, and wants us to know that over and over and over and over again. Who adores us, who delights in us more than we can possibly imagine. I wonder what kind of world we would make if we trusted in that God. We'll now sit in silence for about 30 seconds to ponder that mystery of the God who loves us more than we can possibly